In this tutorial, what we're going to do is take a look at how we can attach the switch and the LEDs to the digital die circuit. If you take a look at your PCB that you've got by now, what you need to be able to do is to identify where it is that the actual LEDs are going to have to go. Okay, so I'm holding my PCB in my hand at the moment, and what I can see here is a couple of spaces here that are connected. You see those two? Those are going to be two of my LEDs. The positive end has actually got a little teeny tiny plus written next to it as well, so I can spot that. What I've also got further down is I've got two more LEDs that are going to go just here, two more LEDs just here, and then one all by itself down at the bottom somewhere, which is right down at the very bottom. That's down just here. Okay, so LEDs there, 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 and there. I've also got my switch, which goes next to the letters SW, which is located here. So, doing the switch and the LEDs is both fairly similar for both. Let's do an LED first of all. So I'm going to grab myself an LED in my hand, and the first thing I'm going to do is I decide which end's the positive end of the LED. Now that's the one that's got the longer of the two legs. Okay, so that's this one up here, and I'm going to fan the legs out about 45 degrees, like so. What I'm then going to do, just pop you up there for a sec. What I'm then going to do is to grab myself some black multi-cord wire. That's this stuff that I've got just here. And I want about 5 centimetres of that. I'm going to measure that on my cutting mat, which on this particular one has actually got a 5 centimetre kind of ruler grid on the bottom of it. And to snip that with my side cutters. Okay, snip. I also need about 5 centimetres of red as well, which I happen to have just here. And I'll just measure one against the other and cut that, so I know they're both about the same length. Okay, next thing to do is to grab the wire stripper, which is this nice little thing here, and a piece of wire goes inside the wire stripper. Probably wants to go in about sort of, I don't know, 5mm, something like that approximately, and then just pinch and it'll strip the wire off, flip over to the other end, about 5mm in and strip. Same thing on the black wire, and that's now ready to go. Next thing I'm going to do is to take each of my ends that I've just stripped, and I'm just going to twizzle those in my finger so that all the individual strands of wire will twist together, so they're not going to end up getting scruffy a bit later on. That's the belt. Okay, like so. And let's now do that LED. So, holding the long leg of the LED just here. Okay, I'm going to wrap my red wire in there first. We always use red for positive. And I'm going to start off by hovering the extra strands of wire over the top of the LED leg at about sort of 90 degrees like that. I'm wrapping that over the top and around, over the top and around, and sort of trying to get it to sit as flat as I can. Let's see if we can get that to focus so that you can see that. I do appreciate it's going to be a bit tricky with this camera, but I've basically got it sitting nice and flat along the leg of the component. I'm then going to slide that up. This is really important. A lot of people forget to do that. I'm sliding it up so the wire is now right at the top of the LED leg. Okay, and now once that's slid up to the top, I can actually grip the LED in my clip I've got here, and I can get that soldered in place. When you do this, the trick is only to use a small amount of solder. You really don't need very much at all. So soldering iron's coming in, touching that on the two different metals that I'm trying to join together, and then just feeding in just a tiny little bit of solder, okay, and that will soak in. You might not even be able to actually see it, but rest assured, when I give that a little tug, that's on there now and that's not coming off. So I can then get that done by getting in there with a side cutter and trimming off that loose leg that I've got, because I don't want that anymore. Okay, pulling that back round to straight again. I'll grab myself a bit of heat shrink tubing like I've got just here. Now this piece is really huge. You can see that's got to be like 5 centimetres long. I only need about a centimetre of the stuff. Okay, I really don't need very much. So I'm going to grab that centimetre of tubing and slide that over the end of my component that I just was working with. Okay, slide that up and then slide it over my soldered area. You can tell if you use too much solder because you won't be able to do it as easily as I just did. Okay, and that's now insulated, so there's no risk of these two things here ever touching. Because it's heat shrink tubing, in order to make it shrink, we need to apply heat, and to do that I'm just going to use the thick edge of the soldering iron. I'm just literally going to rub that up and down just once or twice around the outside edges. That's all it takes. It doesn't need more than that. And as a result of doing that, that heat shrink tubing is not going to slide off. I then repeat the process for my black piece of wire. So coming on here, wrapping, and wrapping, and wrapping, and again trying to get it to sit as tight and as sort of neatly on the LED leg as I can. I'm happy with that now, so I'm going to slide that up to the top of the LED, clamp it, solder again. Again, not much solder needed here. Okay, that's it. And let's get that trimmed off. So, a bit more of my heat shrink tubing. Oops, just pinned off. I'll come pick that up in a minute. Get my black wire and my black background. Slide that over and pull it through. Looking good. Okay, so that's an LED. Next thing I need to do now is to solder this into place. Okay, and one of the things you want to do as well is to actually twist the wire together like this before it goes on. Okay, see what I'm doing here? Just twist, 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 twist. And what that'll do is it'll just make the wires a bit neater in your sort of wiring loom, because you'll end up with lots and lots and lots of these wires. Okay, so it'll make it a bit neater and also give it some strength as well. Okay, and help it from popping out. So let's get this one in. Red is always positive, so I'm going to feed this one into one of my positive holes on my PCB, which is just here. In you go. Now it's trying to sort of jump out the hole a bit, so I'm just putting a few more twists on that wire. Okay, let's get you in there. Go for a different one. There we go, that's gone straight in. And I'm not actually going to do the black one at the same time. I'm just going to plonk that one down for a second. And I'm just going to try and solder that. Okay, now you'll notice as I'm doing this, they keep jumping out for me as well. Okay, and if I've been doing this for a while and they keep jumping out, they'll do it for you too. You do have to be quite careful with this. Can be a bit frustrating at times. Here we go. Just move the stand out of the way for a second. So, same process as usual, just be aware it's going to try and run away from you. Soldering iron goes in, feed in some solder, soldering iron comes away. Come on you go. Okay, that's flowed on there nicely. Now, as I look at that, I can actually see a big load of metal sticking out the top. Can you sort of see that? Okay, I want this insulation here, this red insulation, to sit flat on the PCB. So I'm actually going to melt this again. Now I've actually got it sort of in position. And I'm going to try and make it go up a little bit. So I'm going to do that by holding the LED from underneath. That's not going to burn me. Melting the solder and then pushing up. Okay, so let's see. Move this over here so you can see. And let's refocus the camera so you can see as well. There we go. Here it comes. So melting the solder, pushing up. Okay, you see how that's risen up? Okay. Try and leave that looking fairly neat. Side cutter comes in, just like we've done before a lot of times, and side cut away. Okay, you've got to make sure that when it's done, it's not wobbling around. This is why I'm just coming back on here, because I'm concerned that mine's wobbling around a little bit. That's it, that's nice and solid. And then a black wire. You may find that you want to get hold of this with the long nose pliers or something to try and coax it in a bit. Try and make sure that all the wires in that multi-core, all the wires go through the little hole. Keep retwisting if you need to. Get it through that hole. There we go, it's going in, that's lovely. Now, before it tries to escape, get that soldered in. What have I put my solder? Okay, same as always. Soldering iron in. Count 3. Feed it the solder. A bit more. For some reason my solder isn't bonding very well today. There we go, that's gone on lovely. Okay, and then side cutter in and snip. Okay, so that is my first one of my LEDs in there. Look, that's nice, all twisted together, standing up nicely all by itself. What you'll then also need to do is the same thing for all the other LEDs. You also need to do the switch. When you do the switch, it's slightly easier to do. Just use red and black again if you want. So I've got these lovely little holes either side of the switch. So what I can actually do, let me just grab a piece of wire real quick. Do another quick wire strip. I'll just do one end. What I can actually do with this is to get hold of my long nose pliers, get hold of the end of one of those little lugs, as we call them, of the switch. So I'm gripping it like that, and then gently, with one finger, bend it out 90 degrees, get hold of the other lug, one finger, bend it out 90 degrees, so it looks a bit more like that. And you can then push your wire through there, through the little hole. Through the little hole, and just bend it back on itself, and that will sit there really nice and well behaved for you and make it easier to work. You can then clamp your switch. Don't worry about the fact it's hanging down, that's fine. Get the soldering iron in from behind. Watch out for melting the black plastic on the back part of the switch. I'm notorious for doing it, and you can see when it's set because it suddenly locks in position. Look, what I tend to do with mine, because I'm a bit pedantic, is I do like to remelt the solder afterwards and just have it so it's sticking perfectly downwards, and just hold that just for a second while it dries so it sticks out like so. Okay, obviously you'll need to wire strip both ends so that you can stick it into the board, and that goes into the switch holes in the bottom here. So once you've finished, you'll have 7 LEDs all soldered, looking beautiful like this. It gets a bit busy towards the end, and you'll have your switch in there as well. Once that's finished, we'll be in a position to add our Genie chip, and to then get it plugged into the computer, and to do some testing basically, and start to actually use it. So we're nearly there. You're doing great, and I will see you in the next tutorial once you've got this all finished.